Welcome to Professionals and Coffee, a volunteer collective that boasts the professional profiles of public relations practitioners through virtual coffee chats. My name is Carolina Salinas, founder and project manager of Professionals and Coffee, and today I am so excited to have Andrea Chrysanthou, Senior Director, Corporate Communications and Public Affairs of National Public Relations. And as our interviewer of Professionals and Coffee, we have Riddhi Verma, an international student pursuing PR postgraduate certificate from Seneca College. Welcome both of you to Professionals and Coffee, and I will now turn over the microphone. It is all yours, Riddhi.
Hi, Andrea. So now I will be introducing Andrea to all of you. Andrea is an award-winning and versatile communicator with more than a decade of experience in public relations, public affairs, marketing, and corporate communications. She is the Senior Director and in charge of corporate communications and public affairs at The National, which is Canada's leading PR firm. Apart from this, she's also the Vice President of the Public Affairs Association of Canada. She serves as the membership chair of the Canadian PR Society, and she's the member of the Communications Committee Equal Voice. She's also worked as a journalist and producer at some of the Canada's top national broadcasters, as well as international news organizations. And moreover, she's one of the less than 500 Canadians accredited public relations through the Canadian Public Relations Society. And she's passionate about advancing the communication industry in Canada. Hi, Andrea. Now I will be commencing with the interview questions. My first question is to know your journey that led you to the field of PR and what was the first step that you took towards it?
Yeah, first of all, thank you both for having me. It's such an honor and for the lovely introductions. I really appreciate that. I want to say that my journey into public relations is unique, but more and more, I see so many people who have taken the same path as me, and it wasn't straight out of university. Although I did take some public relations courses in university, I actually went into journalism and lifestyle television production. So I was working at Bell Media, Much Music, and CTV as a lifestyle producer. And in that role, I was working a lot with PR companies who were trying to get their products on our shows. And I would find every so often, I would get a pitch from a PR person, and they would say, "We would want you to put this product on TV." And it didn't feel organic to me. It didn't feel authentic. So I would always work with them to make it interesting, both for their client and also for our show and our viewers. And so as time came on, I really loved that part of my job. And then fate sort of intervened. I went on maternity leave and I had a baby about 9 years ago. And then when I came back, the day I came back, I was laid off. So I had a choice then to sort of continue at Bell Media and find another role or go off and do something else. And I, really spoke to people who I trusted. And I said, I really want to try this public relations thing. I think I'm good at it. And so I did. I left and I went on to start working. I called on companies that I'd worked with that had put their products on our shows. And I asked them for internships and for, little jobs. And I hustled my way in. And all of a sudden I was doing it. Now, having said that, I thought I knew more than I did. And public relations is a science and a skill set. And so I am not trying to say by any means that you can just become a public relations professional. I've learned so much and I've been fortunate to be around so many people who have taught me. So I'm thankful to them. And it continues to be a journey, but that was sort of my start.
Wow, that's incredible. I think that's a very inspiring story for all of us. And moving further with this, I would like to know, so we got to know that you are into very voluntary works as well. So how do you manage your workload at the National and your voluntary positions?
Some would say I don't manage it. It's a lot of work. I'm passionate about it. And so I put in the time, so I do volunteer, and most weekends I will work a couple of hours on Saturday and a couple of hours on Sunday, trying to catch up on just my volunteer work. And of course we have board meetings a couple of times a month, and I'm supportive with those. I think those positions are really important, though. I'm a lifelong learner, and I urge when I speak to young people who are in the PR field, volunteering is such a great way to learn and to give back to not only our community, but to those around us who have supported us and to our industry. And so volunteering both with the Public Affairs Association of Canada and the Canadian Public Relations Society, I really believe in what they're doing in elevating our industries. And so I'm happy to give back. I meet really, really interesting people every day. And every time I'm on a call with the team, I continue to learn. And so while it is volunteering from a purely selfish point of view, it's also a learning experience for me that I don't have to pay for. So it's a good way. I always urge people to find ways that they can volunteer as a way to grow their own their work, but also their personal brand and have real personal development.
Oh, that's great. Like I do believe this, that volunteering comes above all, and even learning is a very good thing to prioritize too. But moving further with this, so what are your roles and responsibilities at CPRS like?
Yeah, so as the membership chair, and I'm coming to an end for this role in a couple of months, but and we'll see then how I continue with the board. Hopefully, I will continue. What I do is I support members as they come in and really look for, first of all, look for our opportunities to increase membership, obviously, whether it is helping to create events, helping to support through social media initiatives. So that piece is really important. How do we get people to know about our membership, want our membership, and apply for our membership? But then also, once you are a member, how can we support you? So I reach out to new members all the time and say, hey, what is it about CPRS that is exciting to you? What can we do differently? How can we support you? Put them in touch with folks that might be of interest to them. So I like to do a little bit of that. And then certainly what I do with members, but also, folks who reach out to me on LinkedIn, is I'm happy more often than not. I make the time and I'm able to have short little calls. Carolina will let you know that I will try to make time whenever I can to just have a half-hour conversation with someone. Sometimes you just need someone to give you some ideas, head you in a different direction. I learn from people all the time, and I'm happy to also pay it forward. And I also learn so much from the people I talk to.
Amazing. Those informative calls are very important. And my next question is related to that. So as a newcomer looking to break through into the PR industry, we reach out to more people and connect with them. So it was just recently that I connected with one of the Toronto's national HR coordinator, Bridget. I connected with her on LinkedIn and we had a virtual chat about the national and my interest as well. I asked her about internship opportunities, but she told me that National does not hire, it doesn't have an internship program as such, but it does hire interns if needed. So I want to know from you, like, what would you suggest to someone like me? How can we enter a PR industry without a proper experience in it and with just educational background?
Yeah, I get this question all the time. What I want people to remember, we do PR. So the very first client that you have when you're out of school is yourself. So I want you to look at yourself as your client. And what would you do if you had a client who wanted to get their name out there, who wanted to be recognized? You wouldn't just say, sit back and someone will find you. No, you'd be like, what can you do to get your name out there, to differentiate yourself from the competitors? Remembering that there are hundreds of students who graduate public relations programs every year, maybe more than hundreds in Canada. And there are those who don't graduate who are interested in our field and want to be involved. So how does one person stand out, especially, as you said, really, when you don't have a job already? So what I say to people is use the tools that we would use for public relations. So social media is a really important tool that we use for our clients. It's also a really important tool for ourselves. You found me through LinkedIn. I try whenever possible to be really out there on LinkedIn. So I will post, I will write articles. I try to differentiate myself from others who might be in the same position with me. I am on boards. Those are volunteer boards. That makes me, again, stand out from others who are, in my field. So it is, and that creates thought leadership opportunities. And so all those things that we would tell our clients, I think we need to just look ourselves in the mirror and say, okay, this is what I have to do. Finding a job, unfortunately, is a full-time job. in and of itself, right? So really focusing on how am I going to do this? I encourage people all the time to write articles and posts on LinkedIn to show their personalities, to show their knowledge, their passion for what we do. I wrote a little while ago, I don't know if any of you guys remember was it on Netflix or Amazon, the show Flack about a
I'm
PR
not
agent.
aware of that.
It was it's not good, but it was, it talked about PR people. It was a comedy, but PR people who, would do really immoral things to help their clients. And it was very popular at the time. And I thought, oh, this is just so frustrating, because I would get calls all the time from friends saying, oh, is this what you do? I'm like, no. And so on my LinkedIn, I wrote a post called A Love Letter to Public Relations, and really talking about what it is that we do. This is not who we are. We don't, lie, cheat, and steal for our clients. We actually help them become better versions of themselves whenever possible. That's what I try to do, try to guide my clients in the right direction. And so just remembering, like, how is anyone going to find you? And when they do find you, if they put you next to the 20 other people in your classroom, the 100 other people in your school, the 5,000 other people that graduated this year, how are you going to stand out? And it's not just grades. Grades are important, but that's not the be all and end all. It really is getting out there, meeting people, having these coffee chats, because again, it's also who who can introduce you. But you have to also, when you're ready to meet these people, I also meet with lots of people. And so for me, for someone to stand out, it has to be someone who has that initiative, who says to me, look, I write all these posts. This is where I volunteer. This is what I do on the side. This is why I love what I do. And then I want to be just excited for them. And I have absolutely, when I've had calls with people who are like that, I'm like, oh my God, I have to find a job for you. I have to find someone who knows someone. I may not be able to hire you, but someone's going to hire you. And more often than not, those people are hired.
Wow, those are some great advices. I'm going to keep this in mind that we are our own first clients. I think that's something useful for all of us. And since you've experience in both the fields, marketing and PR, how would you define the difference between the two in the most simple words?
Marketing and PR. That's a question that gets asked time and time again. And this is how I see a difference. Marketing is all about sales. So you're putting together a communications piece that aims to sell something, whether it's an idea, a product, etc. I think public relations is truly building relationships with publics. So building relationships with your audience. You may also be selling at some point, but that is not the goal of what you're doing. For me, the gold standard of public relations is being able to build a relationship that is a two-way relationship with our audiences, learning from them and giving them what they need. And then again, listening to them and acting on what they tell us. So it's a two-way communication and it's relationship building, which will maybe today lead to sales, maybe 5 years from now lead to sales, but it might have nothing to do with sales. It might have to do with building our reputation, building our brand, getting awareness of an issue that we are really passionate about. But at the end of the day, relationships is the key word.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but now that you mentioned this program, Andrea, about Netflix, now it came to my mind a program that there were some years ago. Sorry, you remember Mad Men, although it
Yes.
focused more on advertising, but also they talk about a little bit of the beginning of PR by that time during the 60s in New York.
Yes, that's right.
I highly recommend you read it.
I'll definitely watch it. Thank you so much. But yeah, those are some great insights. I'll definitely keep them in mind. And I'm most excited for this question. So from your LinkedIn, I got to know that you were also a fitness instructor for about 10 years. And I'm keen to know, was it your interest, your passion, or something else that led you to being an instructor?
So it's funny. I first became certified in personal training because I would go to the gym all the time and I didn't want to hire a personal trainer all the time because they're expensive. And so I was like, well, rather than hire a personal trainer, why don't I just become a personal trainer and learn everything that they learn?
Wow.
And then I can actually teach myself. And so that is how initially I started. And then over time, randomly, I married someone who was a personal trainer, not through the business of ourselves, and not through, sort of meeting through the industry. We met otherwise. and then continued that process. And then I started teaching others because I loved the idea of it, but then also it was a part-time job. So I would teach boot camps, I would work out, and then they would pay me to work out. And so I was like, this is a win-win. I work out and someone pays me. Anyway, I'm always hustling in the back of my mind. So, and I just loved the idea that I was making a difference in people's lives. Frankly, a lot of times, I would let people into my class for free because I was just so motivated to be around people who were excited to change their lives and who were really, potentially needing this. And I was so humbled to be part of their journey. So did that for a long time. I did that until I had my baby, and then it was just too difficult to be able to leave the house. It was just not fair to him to leave the house and go work out with others when I could do that when, I would just try to find time whenever I could to work out. So I still like to work out, but I don't necessarily train anymore.
That's amazing. I mean, I think boot camps are the most intensified things in the gym, and I love them too. I've tried them 2-3 times. But also, so what skills do you think are essential for a communications professional to reach out to the entire world with their client's message?
I think as a communicator, we need to, the really important thing that makes a good communicator is understanding why. Why is it that we're doing what we're doing? Why are we putting out a press release? Why are we putting out a social media post? I think it's, if you understand the why, that makes you a good communicator, because then you find the right strategy for the client. So for example, if the reason you're putting out a press release is because you want people to buy tickets to your event, then putting a press release on the morning of the event is irrelevant, because I'm going to see it and it's too late for me to change my plans to come to your event. So thinking about the why is it that we do what we do, and how are we building those relationships? I think that's really important. And then also understanding psychology. What is it that people want? Whether it's the person who is going to be reading our social media post, how are we engaging with them? That piece is really important. And then, my real strength just so happens to be media relations. And that, I think part of that is also having worked as a journalist, having worked in television, I know what they're looking for. So really anticipating what people need. We can't be lazy. Newsrooms are small. People are busy. We need to give people everything they need. We need to think before they do. They're going to ask us for a photo. We've got the photo. They're going to ask us for a video. We've got the video. They're going to ask us when, do we have a spokesperson to talk about X, Y, Z? We have 5 spokespeople ready at the waiting. Really being able to anticipate what our clients need, and then what their audiences need to be able to tell that story. I think those things are really important.
Yeah, definitely. And I believe these skills also help us to reach out to more people and eventually know our cause. But also, so I know you've already answered this question, but do you want to elaborate on what would be your best advice to the PR students or young professionals?
Yeah, I think as I said, I really urge each of you to sit down and create a plan and look at yourself. When are you, and this shouldn't be happening, the day that you graduate. It should be happening 6 months before you graduate, because a plan is going to take you some time. So what am I going to do for the next 6 months that's going to get me ready for a job 6 months from now? Or when you're looking to do your next job or move within your career, I'm going to put together an editorial calendar for LinkedIn. And for the next 6 months, I'm going to come up with, maybe it's 1 article a month, maybe it's 1 article every 2 weeks, whatever I can sustain. And the key is really being able to sustain it, right? You don't want to write 1 article and then write another one 4 months from now, because then you just look like you're inconsistent. Do that. Do you have time to email 5 people a week for a coffee? Probably only one of them is going to say yes. Can you do a coffee date once a week for the next 6 months? Be consistent. Can you volunteer? A lot of organizations beyond, for example, beyond the organizations that are associations like what I'm working on, there are so many organizations in Toronto, in other cities, that are small, especially charities, especially neighborhood organizations that need communication support, but they can't pay anyone. And I'm not certainly suggesting that we all go out there and do free work. And I'm absolutely not suggesting that we work for for-profit companies for free. That's absolutely, we should never be doing that. So for example, if you go to an agency, a PR agency, and they say, come intern for me for free, you should run. That is absolutely not okay to take advantage of people. But a small charitable organization, and I do free stuff all the time for charitable organizations, they just don't have the money. And if I find something I'm passionate about, why wouldn't I help them? But that gives you that real experience on your resume. And when you talk about how do you get a job if you don't have experience, that is how you get experience. You work at these small agencies, these small organizations. And the great thing about these organizations is they typically don't have other people in that role. So you can do anything you want. You can do the social media, you can do the press release, you can do a marketing plan. You can, help them with advertising if that's something that's of interest to you. So you can build that role and you're really genuinely, hopefully making a difference with an organization that you're passionate about. So for me, I'm really passionate about nonprofit organizations that do work in homelessness types of situations with vulnerable populations. I've worked with an immigrant museum for many years as a volunteer. So thinking about the things that are really important to me, and I still continue to do those, and I can't do them all the time because I do have so much work that I do, but whenever I can, it just leaves you with such a good feeling. And then you're able to add those to your resume. And then at school, if you're at school, by all means, join the student council, run for president, run on, CPRS has a student board chair. Think about ways, again, everything that you can do to differentiate yourself. That's what I would do.
I'll definitely keep that in mind. And I think I relate to this because even when I have worked in voluntary associations, I've noticed I come up with more ideas because of the freedom and more steps to initiate. And I completely agree with you on this. So lastly, I would like to know, are there any PR resources or reading papers that you would suggest to people or that you read occasionally or regularly?
You know what? I will not, I don't have them off the top of my mind, and my apologies. I should have had them ready for you, but I do read a lot of I subscribe to a lot of emails because I find that a lot of daily emails or weekly emails in the industry that come to you give you the latest sort of advice, the latest trends. So I typically have those coming into my email box, and I will read them on a daily basis or on a weekly basis based on what I'm able to do. But that's really all I actually, unfortunately or fortunately, have time for. So for example, PR Daily has a news feed and I think it comes every day or a few times a week. And I read those stories. I know if you're a member of CPRS, you can join and they'll give you an e-newsletter a few times a month. IABC, which is the other organization that works in communications, also has a newsletter. Because I do public affairs, there's also a really interesting organization in the States called the Public Affairs Council. I get their newsletter. So I typically, because I don't have time to read full resources now, I will say for any of you who are interested, as you mentioned, I did my APR and I'm accredited in public relations, and that was a very intense one-year course through the Public Relations Society of Canada. They also have a course for new graduates, and I found just being able to, or those who are in less than 5 years in their career, and I found being able to be part of that learning process was really interesting, and it really invigorated me. I did a lot of reading while preparing for that. I'm sure most of you have, especially if you're still students, have read so many books, so many textbooks, so many white papers, and those are great, but continue reading the trends of what is happening and looking at, what it is around you, what's happening around you. So, my workplace at National, every week we find an issue with my team, something that's going on in the world, and we talk about it from a communication standpoint. Why did they do what they did? What does it mean? What is the next step? What were they thinking? And so we discuss issues that happen from a purely communication standpoint and have conversations with each other. So get together with your colleagues and have those conversations, learn from each other. I think it's really important to be with other people. We had a call today with some folks around crisis communications at work, and it was just an internal exercise. And someone had an idea and they raised it and they were like, this is what we think should happen. And the other half of us were like, actually, we think it should be exactly the opposite of, and we had that conversation. They were like, oh yeah, I never thought of it that way. And so learning from each other and being able to say, okay, yeah, didn't occur to me. Now it's going to occur to me because someone has said it. So being around other people and having those conversations is really important too.
Yeah, definitely. PR is an evolving field and we need to stay updated with it. It's definitely true. So thank you so much, Andrea, for your time, knowledge, and advices. I'm definitely going to keep them in my mind. And this was a very informative session for me and every student who will watch this. And that's everything on my end. I would like to pass it on to Carolina now.
Thank you, Andrea, for your guidance. Really, you did an excellent job. Congratulations. Thank you, both of you, for your patience. And are there any social media handles that you, Andrea and Rudy, would like to share? Where can we find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, and it is Andrea Chrysanthou. So I'm sure that you will type out my name at the bottom of this. So I'm on LinkedIn, and on Twitter, you can find me Andrea C in PR.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. And what about you, Rudy?
I'm on LinkedIn by Riddhi Verma, and I have a blog page on Instagram, which is Drop of River.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, everyone, and see you on the next Professionals and Coffee Chat. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and to our social media channels, which are in the description below this video. And please join us to do your own virtual coffee chat like just Rudy did today. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Have a great day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much, Andrea.